heal, you can always reach me on drpaulholisticscience.com. And then while you radio listeners are always on and you podcast listeners are always on first, we got to wait for this computer thing that we're all jammed up on to start loading up and to be a part of our show. One of the things, Dr. Onley, that had asked, and I know this happens from a question is, what do you guys, what do you two know? How do you know what you guys are going to talk about? And I actually say, my thing is, and to be a part of our show. One of the things that I have to let people know is that the show is very organic. And what I mean by that is that I don't give Dr. Only like a list of questions and she's got a list of answers that she's doing throughout the week. Like she's prepping and making sure like she gets it all in. No, that is not what we do. I understand that there are some other shows that do that, but I kind of think I don't find that authentic. I mean, what do you think?
I agree. Well, I think that for those that do prepare, sometimes there is a certain message that they want to make sure that they get across, and there's nothing wrong with that. But our process is a lot more organic. I mean, that definitely allows for a more authentic dynamic to develop.
Now, but I wanted to do that little disclaimer real quick because today, this weekend, I know I was feeling sad. I was feeling very somber, and then things are happening, and I'm always very in tune on, not that I'm a news junkie or anything like that. I don't chase news. I don't look for things to cloud my heart, right? But I'm also an empathic person, and I feel when I'm meditating and when I'm praying, I feel sometimes it's very heavy in the world or in the universe, and I can feel it in my prayers and my meditation. Do you ever go through that yourself when you're in your prayers?
Definitely. I think for some of us, I always tell people that I feel things very deeply, and I think for some of us that have that experience for kind of sensors, that when we meditate and when we're in prayer, or even just when we wake up, sometimes there's a heaviness, and then of course when we're aware of all the things that are going on in the world, we tend to carry that with us and then tend to feel it more deeply, and it tends to color our experience as well.
So I mean, and I'll get to why I'm getting, people will get to understand why it's here, because today I actually sent you stuff that I want to talk about because I've been feeling it, and it's been on my mind, it's been on my heart, it's been on my spirit to talk about this, because I also feel like there's an old commercial, I'm telling my age, where this Suave commercial was tell two friends, tell two friends, tell two friends, and so on and so on. So sometimes when I'm thinking about something, I'm thinking if I'm thinking it, if I'm feeling it, there are other people who are feeling it too. So why not let that be part of the conversation of other people? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I tend to experience that in this kind of phenomenon of group chats, where oftentimes someone will say something and then immediately another person will say the same thing. It's like, oh, we were thinking the same thing. But yes, that dynamic where if you're thinking it, people that you know or someone else in the world is definitely thinking it as well.
So and I don't know if I should go through the list of what's on my head, because just this weekend, not just this weekend. So, but before we get started, I actually brought this because of my spirit, and lighting a candle for a lot of religious modalities or any other spiritual talk. There's a flame that we have internally, and our spirit has an internal flame, and a higher power keeps the internal flames. But I really want to light this candle on air symbolically to let people know that there is hope. So I just want to take the time and do that now, because so this weekend in Wisconsin, there was a shooting of a unarmed black man by cops. Yesterday in Prince George's County, there were 3 officers who went to a domestic call and was ambushed and shot. No parties are dead that I'm going to speak of just the parties I'm speaking of. The cops that what saved them was their police vest. The unarmed black man, he's in a hospital. I think he's fighting for his life, and I think he will have a recovery. In Baltimore County, there was a woman who was walking to the store 12 o'clock in the afternoon and gets shot by bullets fired out. Also, there are hurricanes coming down to the coast. Marco is, I think, will hit Louisiana, in 24 hours, something like that?
Something like that. Mm-hmm.
And Laura's right behind it. And then we have COVID. And then we have infection. And then we have schools. And then there will always be countless of things that weighs on us. We don't discard them or discount them, but what is some of those ways that we're going to talk about today, besides lighting a candle and doing your prayer? But how do we help?
So I think any kind of help has to start from the individual and then go without. Before you try and reach out to someone or do something within your community, it's really important to take care of yourself and to help yourself in those certain moments. So over this weekend, and today, as you kind of sent me those messages, it's been pretty overwhelming in some ways for me emotionally. And so there was a process that I had to go through. First, of recognizing all of my emotions and honoring them. There was my sadness turns into anger quickly. And that's just what I know about myself. So I've been very angry. And so expressing that anger to people that I trust has been one. First, within that group chat that I told you about, and then also with my father, who's someone that I trust and someone that I care for. And so writing about it, talking about it to people that are in your circles is definitely a part of the process, but honoring it. There's a reason why you're feeling all the feelings that you're feeling, whether it's sadness, anger, whatever it is. First, make sure that you name it, identify it, and then honor it, that there are reasons why you're feeling that way. Now, for me, the way my process continues is as I recognize that feeling, I also recognize that I have a choice in how I channel it. Right. And so the way I know to channel my energy is to go into meditation. And so as I meditated, there is an affirmation that the kind of still small voice within me spoke to me. And it simply said, although I accept the reality of this situation, I do not accept its permanence. And so with that, I recognize that what's going on is very real, but I do have the power to imagine what I want it to be. And that's where my power lies. And so that's the process that I went through, first of identifying and honoring my feelings, and then channeling it into what do I want to express and what do I want to hold the space for in the future.
You know, and for me, when I so agree, because when I'm doing my meditation, I'm feeling the way, I allow that purging to happen. I allow those cryings to happen. And I allow that breath to try to not, because it wants to dampen. My breath wants to cease and stop. And that's where the disease come in, the internal disease. And that internal sickness comes because your mind, your chemical mind wants to hold your body tight. That's why you then refocus yourself onto my internal, my powerful self, breathing through that. And that's when we've talked about this before, about focusing on your breathing and taking time for that meditation, because you really have to allow that internal elixir, that internal power to just keep moving through that pain, sadness, depression, and anger. Allow it to move through, and it doesn't push it away, but it does break it up into these small particles. And then you, like you said, then you can put your energy into it. What am I now going to push out into the universe, which is love, compassion, kindness, and for other things, resolution. Not your resolution, but to have resolution, because we don't want, I may want peace, but I don't want peace just because it's peaceful to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's different, because I think if you look at peace for your own convenience or your own service, then you want peace to go your way. And I think that's ego talk. Am I right about that? What do you think?
I would agree. And I would also say though that there is a need for you to find a peace within yourself. And there's a need for you to allow others to have the process of finding that same peace in whatever way it looks like. Not to judge others as they go through their process, but for you to go through a process where you can find some type of peace within yourself. And then from that place, do have inspired action. But again, having the idea that I want peace and I want everyone to have peace, I want everything to just stop right now, that is a very ego and selfish way of looking at the world and looking at any circumstance that we find ourselves in currently. But the idea of finding a peace within yourself and going through a process to establish that, but then also allowing everyone the freedom to go through their own process and establish their own peace is really what is that higher order level of thinking.
So I want to ask the question for people, and maybe it seems like we've asked this question countless of times. And as a patient asking you, what if I can't get through my process? Now what? Now did I fail? Is the question, because now if I'm trying to breathe and Dr. Only and Dr. Paul says really push through it and work here, and then I can't do it. I can't finish. Should that be a failure? I mean, I don't get an answer to that.
Absolutely not. It's definitely
Right.
not a failure, but it is an indication that support is necessary for you to move through the process, which is completely normal and which is absolutely healthy. What becomes abnormal is when we don't have that recognition, that self-awareness, and then we stay stuck. There's a famous saying that you don't drown because you go under the water, you drown because you stay under the water. And so the idea is, it makes sense that if something is overwhelming, if there's a current that's overwhelming, you might go under, and that's okay. But
Right.
reaching out for that support and allowing yourself the environment that's needed for you to move through the process, which is not an isolated environment, that's really what we're calling you to do at this moment.
And I've never heard that analogy before about the water, because I have saved 2 drowning people in my lives and in other situations also, and everyone reaches up when they're drowning. They flail at it. They may go down, but they pop up somehow. And if you are going down, reach. That hand is reaching for help, and allow that sinking feeling and throw your hands up, and that will visually tell you I need help. Because I've never seen anyone throw their hands down to the ground going, hell, you know what I mean? So great. That's awesome.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I really want to make sure that everyone hears the idea that moving through the process is possible. Because I think a lot of times when we get stuck, we feel like there's no way out, it's impossible, there's no hope. And I just want everyone to hear the idea that moving through is possible. You don't have to do it alone, and there are people out here that are willing to help you. This is a very challenging situation. It makes sense that it's overwhelming. Don't shame yourself for that.
So, because this is not, to me, I don't think mental health is political. And I don't see how politics come into the mental mind. I know it affects your physical self. I know it affects your external self. But so caring, compassionate, and kindness isn't political. So when you're talking about these situations, whether it be hurricane, whether it be COVID sickness and death, whether it be job loss, job insecurity, money, all of those things we mentioned. Talking about it, if it goes political, what's a healthy way for someone to say, I don't want to talk about politics, I want to talk about mental health?
I think anytime that goes political, the importance is to bring back the humanity into it. So to approach the conversation by saying, I want to talk about the people that are involved in this. I want to talk about myself as a person. I want to talk about the condition of humans and not necessarily of the politics of it all, but to recognize what's going on just on a basic humanity level. I mean, I think if the person that you're talking to isn't willing to make that switch, that too is an indication that that may not be a conversation to continue. And you have every right to stop the conversation if you no longer want to be a part of it.
Because it's unhealthy to be part of a conversation that you don't feel a part of.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
If you're going to exclude me, I'm trying to talk about how it's affecting me, what I think about it. Like, let's talk about, and I'll give people an example. I'll give a true example. The black male that was got shot by the cops, made me sad because I put myself in that position, and it affected me. That is expressing my feelings. I'm not talking about police. Like, so how would you try to talk about police and rules of defunding the police? And because I want to go through the role play of you wanting to talk about politics and me keep it on a personal.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, a lot of times the conversations start with something like, these police, you can't trust them. They're all trash, this, and that. And so with that, we get on a very kind of demonizing of a whole industry. There are individuals in the police. Not every individual is the same. And so when we get to a place where we're talking about things on with a wide brushstroke, I think those are the conversations that can be really detrimental.
And and then you go back and say, yeah, but I want to talk about my feelings about it. And then hopefully someone says, well, how did it affect you? Right? Mm-hmm. Then that goes into a personal level, not so much the demonizing of the broad stroke like you were talking about. So if a person's talking, now let's help the friend help the person. If a person's talking and they're expressing their emotions, like the hurricane and tornadoes that's coming to, and all the things that how can a friend allow that person who's trying to express open up? What are some of the healthy words to say?
So questions like, can you label that emotion? What would you say that emotion that you're feeling is? How does it feel in your body? Have you ever felt it before? What do you do with it when you do feel it? What are some things that soothe you when you find yourself feeling this way? And if it is the first time that you're feeling it, how can I be helpful in this moment? How can I help soothe you? Or what can we do together that might distract you for a moment so you can get a clearer mind and then go back to it? Just so you can get a break from it, not necessarily putting your head in sand and denying it, but just so you can get a break from it so you can think about it with fresh eyes the next time that it does cross your path. So those are a few things that you can do in those conversations where, again, you're staying in the moment with that person, you're helping them clarify and identify what they're feeling, and then you're also helping them understand how they soothe themselves and how you can be helpful in soothing them. How can I be helpful right now?
These tips, they're not tips. It seems it actually, to me, I don't want to say it seems like, but I'm searching for a better verbiage. But we're not taught how to communicate. It's not often people learn how to talk with one another compassionately. Do you find that to be true, or does it just seem like people then have to evolve into compassion? Because to me, compassion in the practice, in the Buddhist practice, we practice compassionate action, prayer, and work. I mean, you literally have to work at it, like do it, right? Constantly for it to become habitual. But we're not taught to be compassionate, are we? I mean, what do you think? I mean, that's more of a question, I guess.
Definitely, yeah. I would say a lot of people aren't taught how to be compassionate, and they aren't taught what practical compassion looks like. Yeah. Where there's this kind of idea of what compassion is, which is, being able to, and a lot of people confuse compassion with empathy. So the idea of being able to like put yourself in someone's shoes, That's not what compassion is. Compassion is really, that's more empathy.
Yeah.
But compassion is really being able to sit with someone as they go through their own experience, and then expressing support as they go through that experience in a gentle and in a loving way. So really having that autonomy in their experience, and then having that gentleness and that lovingness as they go through a challenging situation. That's more what the compassion is. And a lot of people, because a lot of people are that on that fix it or action oriented um, society which we live in, and that's kind of the perspective that they bring to it. It's more of a, what can I do, how can we fix this, how can we stop this, instead of an allowing and a really sitting and a loving someone through a challenging situation.
So another question, and I've had these types of conversation before, and that's where I'm coming up with this question. This is my religion, XYZ, and if you just do this, you would find relief. I don't believe that's not compassion. For me to give you some type of, my belief is this, and if you only did this, you wouldn't have this problem.
Mm-hmm.
How would you help someone not direct it that way? Or because it's often said, like, this is my belief, this is my practice, and if you just do this, you would find so much salvation. That's not helping me if I'm the one asking to have, you know what I mean?
Definitely. So I think it goes back to what I said about compassion being an allowing of that person to have their experience. Once you start hearing yourself saying any kind of I statements or my statements, at that moment, it's no longer about them and it's become about you. And that is not compassion. And so when you find that you feel you have an understanding or you have something that might be helpful for you, recognize that that's what helps you, but it may not be what helps them. And so again, directing the question to what helps you? This may be what helps me, but what helps you? Do you think it might be helpful for you? And if it's not, or if it's not something that they're familiar with, really taking a genuine interest in what their understanding of it is and what is helpful to them is really how we bring compassion into it.
And that was a very important piece, because I know people, like you said, this fix-it society. We being compassionate is different than wanting to help fix everything for someone. They're not the same. They don't even run on the same track. They may cross each other, but they're just not the same. And allowing, and I think that's such a great help. Let's explain that allowing one more time, because I think once people understand the difference between allowing is different than offering or fixing. Because allowing doesn't mean I offer anything. Allowing doesn't mean I'm able to fix it. Even if I just went through this and I know exactly what to do, you know what I mean? That's not allowing. Matter of fact, if you don't allow, you actually hurt the person and you stamp them out. You actually silence their spiritual voice. And that is that, and the person now feels very bottled, and that voice may not ever come back out.
Exactly. And the best way I can explain allowing is really holding the space for. So when, as you are sitting there in silence, or as you are sitting there, maybe giving some kind of physical soothing, like rubbing a leg or an arm, as you're sitting there, it really is about holding the space for their healing, holding the space for their understanding, holding the space for their process, allowing them, letting them know that they're not alone as they move through this, but allowing them the space to go through it, and you simply being a loving presence in that space. But what you're doing is holding the space, not changing it, not influencing it, not impacting it in any way other than staying there and holding that space for them, trusting in their ability to move through their own process, because everyone has a God-given ability to move through their process.
And I hope people know that as we talk about it, if you're having difficult times going through your process, seek help. Please contact a professional. Contact them. Let them know that I need some assistance, and it's really okay. The whole a lot of the Black community is go talk to your auntie and let's go talk to, no. Those are all good. Let's go talk to the best friend. And no matter what community you're in, I don't care what community you're in, seek mental professional help to help you through a process. Get the tools, get the information, understand who you are, and that will help you live a better life instead of surviving. With all the stuff that's happening, that could happen, that you pay attention to, notice, you just passed an accident, you went through a grave, doesn't matter what things can cloud you, there's a process you're going to go through. And that is emotional health, mental health, and that is part of your overall health. Dr. Only?
Absolutely. And I would also say, again, the key is to allow yourself to be in an environment where where you can safely move through that process. And I'll also say for my healthcare workers and for my fellow counselors, we are not immune to this process, and we too can get stuck. So just because you're in the helping profession does not mean that you too also don't need to reach out and get help at some point too. So again, we're not immune to it. My fellow counselors, please make sure that you are taking care of yourselves in this time. And last thing I'll say is social media can be really awesome, but then it can also cause or be detrimental to our process as we continue to watch these videos, as we continue to read every single article that's out there, engage in every conversation about the things that are going on. So please, please, please limit yourself to the amount of social media that you're exposing yourself to, because there is a vicarious trauma that can occur with that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Only. Mental Health Mondays is just so special, and I'm glad it's special to a lot of people. I'm glad people can reach out to me at drpaulholisticscience.com or drpaulwdyer@gmail.com. Whatever your questions are, whatever your likes, dislikes, shares, and comments, please, but have a conversation. I love having the conversation. I love we are giving the helpful hints and tips, and we will see everyone next Monday. I want to say a prayer before we take out of here. So if everyone bow your heads, thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for listening to our plight, listening to our strength, listening to our inner light. As long as we know that we seek living instead of surviving in death, we know that we shall carry on in your flame of light. In Jesus Christ we pray, amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Only. And I will see you be safe, you be blessed, and prayers for all those people who are going to get hit with storms and emotional storms, physical storms, spiritual storms. Allow yourself to protect yourself in practice. Thank you.